The human brain uses 20% of the body's energy even though it's only 2% of the body's total weight. The smallest country in the world is the Vatican, which only has 0.22 square miles or 44 square kilometers. There are 350 pyramids that were built by the rulers of the ancient Kushite kingdoms now known as Sudan. On average, brunettes have less hairs on their head compared to red-haired and blondes. The top 10 cheese-eating countries are all in Europe, with French being number 1. The average French person consumes 57 pounds 25 kg of cheese per year. Jaguars in the wild are known for frequently getting high eating hallucinogenic roots, which also increases their senses for hunting. The largest organism in the known world today is a fungus that lives in the mountains of Oregon. It spans across 2.4 miles 3.8 km. There is a city called Rome in each continent. A man named Sogen Kato was thought to be the oldest man in Tokyo until 2010, when officials arrived at his home to wish him a happy 111th birthday, only to find his mummified remains. It turns out he had been dead for 30 years and his family had been collecting his pension money. Your mobile phone carries 10 times more bacteria than your toilet seat. Women have been using pregnancy tests since 1350 BC. They used to pee on wheat and barley seeds to determine if they were pregnant or not. If wheat grew, it predicted a female baby, and if barley grew, it predicted a male. The woman was not pregnant if nothing grew. This theory was tested and proved accurate 70% of the time. Brazil's prisons offer their prisoners the chance to reduce their prison sentence by up to 48 days a year for every book they read and write a report on. The pygmy monkey marmoset is the smallest monkey in the world, with an average length of only 5 inches 13 cm and an average weight of 3.5 ounces 100 grams. International Have a Bad Day is November 19th. If gorillas take human birth control pills, it will have the same effects on them. FutureMe.org is a website where you can send letters to yourself at any time in the future. In ancient Athens, the world's first democracy, they had a process called ostracism, where once a year the people could vote on the politician that they felt was the most destructive to the democratic process, and that person was banished from Athens for 10 years. In 2007, Joshua Bell, an award-winning violinist and conductor, conducted an experiment where he pretended to be a street violinist and had over 1,000 people pass him without stopping. He only collected $31 that day, yet 2 days previously sold out to a theater where each seat cost $100. The violin he was playing with on the street was worth $3.5 million. Quebec only finished paying off its 1976 Summer Olympics debt 30 years later in 2006. The man who designed Saddam Hussein's secret bunker was the grandson of the woman who designed Adolf Hitler's. A group of zebras is called a zeal. People who are in love can actually synchronize their heartbeats just by gazing into each other's eyes. Blind people forget many memories since they don't have visual imagery and can't look at pictures to reminisce. A 3D printing company known as Touchable Memories prints 3D objects from old photos so that the blind can touch them, feel, and relive their cherished moments like never before. If one spells out numbers, they would have to count to 1,000 before coming across the letter A. In 2004, a starquake was detected, which was so powerful that if the star was located within 10 light-years of Earth, it would have likely caused a mass extinction. SpongeBob SquarePants was originally going to be called SpongeBoy, and the show was originally going to be called SpongeBoy Ahoy, but they had to change his name after it turned out that SpongeBoy was the copyrighted name of a mop. J.R.R. Tolkien began work on The Hobbit one day early in the 1930s, when he was marking school papers. He found a blank page. Suddenly inspired, he wrote the words, "In a hole in the ground, there lived a hobbit." A boy was allowed by his parents to change his own name when he was 8 years old. Today, he is Dr. Loki Skylazard. Genetic imprint from traumatic experiences carries through at least 2 generations in mice. In the 1950s, TV shows in the USA were not allowed to use the word pregnant as it was considered indecent. The Catholic Church unknowingly made Siddhartha Gautama the Buddha saint after the Christianization of his life story in the 14th century. There was supposed to be a Pinocchio film released in 1936, predating Disney's Pinocchio by 4 years. It was meant to be the first Italian animated film, but for unknown reasons, the film was never completed and it is considered lost. Dolphins give each other names and will answer to it even when called by dolphins they don't know. North Star or the Polaris is actually a set of 3 stars orbiting each other. If you microwave a sliced grape, it can explode in a fireball of superheated plasma. It isn't base jumping, but rather base jumping. It refers to the 4 categories of fixed objects from which one can jump: building, antenna, span, and earth cliff. In 2012, a gang in the Czech Republic stole a 10-ton metal bridge to sell for scrap metal. German World War II pilots in North Africa used to fix bottles of Coca-Cola to the underside of their wings so that the drink would cool at high altitude and be ready to drink after landing. Members of the Nazi Party and KKK shot 5 unarmed protesters to death in North Carolina in 1979, in broad daylight, while being filmed, and all of them were acquitted in 2 separate trials. There is an abandoned 120-year-old concert hall buried underground in the middle of downtown Boston. 12% of Quebec is freshwater, which is 3% of all of the world's freshwater. Quebec holds only 0.1% of the world's population. PG-13 movies are allowed exactly 1 non-sexual fuck. 2 or more in the film automatically receives an R rating. Animators and visual effects artists for Disney's Frozen were sent to Jackson Hole, Wyoming to experience walking, running, and falling in deep snow. Both male and female personnel tried on long skirts to see how they interacted with the snow. George R.R. Martin bought the first ticket to the first Comic-Con in 1964. In the 1860s, a perpetual motion machine was demonstrated at the Paris Exposition. Visitors were invited to try and stop the wheel, which, unbeknownst to them, was the very action needed to charge the wheel back up. The company that owned the World Trade Center had scheduled a meeting for September 11, 2001 on the 88th floor of Tower 1 to discuss what to do in the event of a terrorist attack, but rescheduled the night before because someone couldn't attend. The distance separating two neurons at a synapse is 20⁻40 nanometers. 1 nanometer is equal to 1/1000th of a meter. The brain of the great physicist Albert Einstein weighed 1,230 grams. Receptor cells in the taste buds are replaced about once every 10 days. The pupil of the eye can vary in diameter from 1.5 to 8.0 millimeters. Therefore, the amount of light entering the eye can change 30-fold. Worker honeybees have a ring of iron oxide magnetite in their abdomens that may be used to detect magnetic fields for navigation. The country with the most neurologists per person is Lithuania, where there are approximately 6,240 people for every neurologist. Right-footed African gray parrots have a larger vocabulary than left-footed African gray parrots. Leonardo da Vinci designed contact lenses made of glass filled with water. The praying mantis has been called an auditory cyclops because it has only 1 ear. The ear of this insect is located in the middle of its underside, between its legs.